We are back again for another episode. Yay! So, welcome back to the Sound Guy podcast. It's been a busy day. It's the weekend. I'm not sure you can see the calendar there. No, we can't. Anyway, it's Saturday, the 7th, I think, of December. We're getting closer and closer to Christmas now. Oh boy. It's kind of getting dark out there quickly, so what I think we'll do is we'll take a quick look, which is what we've got at Alfie, having his little sleep. We've got a new dog door for the Alfie, so he can come and go as he pleases now. No more racing up to answer the door for the dog. He's making use of it right now. Sleep, of course. Outside we have purple highlights, which is interesting. So that's just reflections off the window. Outside, it's been raining all day. One of those humid, hot, tropical rainfall rains, which is really cool. I was out and about on a shoot today doing some ADR recording in a podcast studio at Hurstville Library with Joe Joseph. Joe Joseph. He's so cool. Yeah, he was... Anyway... So that we've got the final stages of that done. So the project should be done as far as my input's concerned. Now it's over to post-production, and we'll see the outcome of that in a few months. I would think it'd take a while to finish that. All right. So today, what we're going to do is have a look at quality. Yeah. So the topic that I've chosen is quality. What we'll do is I'll rip over here and we'll bring over my mind map to show you some of the notes. Whoops. The notes I've got. No, why is it not coming over? The quality subject is something very dear to my heart. Being a IT project manager, quality focuses a fair bit. There's a focus on quality. There should be. There's not as much as you'd think, but in projects, quality has its own knowledge area. But it's amazing that not many people actually pay that much attention to it in terms of the nitty-gritty. They say they do, but it doesn't really come out. And we'll see why as we go through this as well. So let's look at the beginning. So last time we spoke around quality. And of course, now what I'm doing is just realize this subject is actually not so much quality, but the requirements which lead to quality. So we'll just summarize very quickly what we discussed last time regarding quality and then move on to requirements around quality. I'm going to be referring to a guy called W. Edwards Deming a fair bit. He's someone a lot of people consider to be the father. I think maybe the son of quality management. There's a guy that W. Edwards Deming refers to a lot, who is a guy called Shewhart. I don't know a lot about him, but there's a Shewhart cycle, which we're going to end on later in the podcast. And what relevance does that have for us as soundies? Well, that will be uncovered as well. First of all, what is quality? Quality is an adherence to a specification or a tolerance. So a measurement. Quality is how close to design measurements are to the tolerances in the final product, item, thing, process that we're measuring. So there's varying degrees of quality, and it depends on how close to the tolerances the final measurements are. This is can be a really boring and dry subject, I've got to warn you, especially quality requirements. But this is where the heart of quality kind of lies, or the rubber hits the road. It's working out what are the requirements that you can then measure to determine whether something is good quality or not. So bear with me. Quality is a measurement set at the design requirement stage. So at the design stage of you've worked out you want something, and how you're going to determine whether that's something that you're going to make is as close to as possible the idea you had in your mind that the outcome is going to be. That's a long way of saying, is the thing that you've decided you want to do as good as you hoped. So requirements are often a list of items that can be used to define and measure from the original design in terms of being inside or outside of tolerance levels. This is a very dry definition again. Well, what about a requirement? What is a requirement? As an example, let's look at a car tyre. So how are we going to determine whether a car tyre is a good quality tyre or a poor quality tyre? There's many aspects, like the composition of it, the make, the thickness, the tyre tread, blah, blah, blah. It can go on for a whole range of different aspects of a tyre. We're going to concentrate on just one, which is tyre pressure, because from that you can determine whether it's going to be a good quality tyre or not in terms of the pressure. Will it go flat quickly or over time, or will it go flat not at all? I don't know. So what makes a quality tyre? Let's look at pressure. So what pressure is the design spec recommending? So there's going to be some kind of tyre pressure where the manufacturer specifies here's the PSI or the kilopascals that we're supposed to use in the metric system here in Australia. The recommended air pressure for the manufacturer, so might say 32 PSI, for example, so that's around about 130 kilopascals. So that is the required tyre pressure. Is it good quality? The only way you can find out is if you measure it. And so a high quality tyre is one that may be able to keep that tyre pressure for a long time. And so how do you determine that? You measure it often over a long period of time and record the results. And so you might have quite a bit of effort being required to be put into working out what the requirements are. So it's easy to see, this is the point I was alluding to earlier, it's easy to see why people overlook quality, because it takes quite a bit of extra effort actually, and quite a bit of extra desire to make it work. Because when you think about it, how often do you check the tire pressure on your car if you drive? It's not going to be very often. Seriously, some people don't even measure it at all, and they just go from week to week, month to month, year to year almost without checking at all. So, and that is what sets apart the people who are going to be really, really good at what they do and just mediocre at what they do. And they take these little these things which seem inconsequential, but have a massive impact if things go wrong. Like if your tire pressure is not high enough and you take a corner at the wrong speed, the tire's going to come off the rim, and then you've got a big problem on your hands. So there's a reason why manufacturers are specifying these tire pressures. But again, it doesn't happen that often, so most people don't really care, don't worry about it. And that's the same thing with us in the sound industry. People don't really care about listing out the requirements and working out the measurements for the tolerances that they're willing to accept or reject. A lot of us, I'll include myself, most of humanity basically look at someone they admire and what they do and copy what they've done. The problem with that is everyone's unique and every situation is unique. So without going through that extra effort to work out what your unique requirements are, you may miss the mark and therefore have a poor quality outcome. And that's basically it in a nutshell. That's why a lot of projects fail and why a lot of people can't succeed, is because they're not really putting in the extra effort to understand what their requirements are. So what is this extra effort? What does it look like? So in the world of project management and in what I do, I have checklists, I have spreadsheets, and I actually create a list of requirements to go through and then prioritize those. So they're prioritized in terms of must-haves and nice-to-haves, and then you measure the tolerances at the end of whatever cycle it is you're looking at. It might be a daily, weekly, monthly, or whenever the process or thing is run or used. But in general, when those measurements are made, we've got a negative change, which would result in a poor quality outcome, or we've got a neutral or no change, which could be a good quality indicator if nothing changes, or if there's a positive change over time, whether that's designed or unexpected, then that could be an indicator for a good or an excellent quality outcome. So it really depends on the context, but they're the general kind of rule of thumb understandings of quality. Where there's negative, neutral, positive changes, you get that resulting poor quality, good quality, or excellent quality. There's not a lot to this. It's really quite basic and quite fundamental, because this is what we actually do by accident when we practice. You, for example, practice piano, and you expect that you don't really know very much to start with, and you're willing to give yourself a bit of leeway with making mistakes, not knowing what keys to press, in what order, for how long. But every time you practice, you remember, last time I did this, it didn't work out. So I'm going to modify it and do this change, and then reapply my learning and go again, and then reiterate or iterate over and over and over again. And that's the basis of what we're ending with the Shewhart cycle, which W. Edwards Deming referred to as his professor, his teacher, who developed that cycle. So he's trying to give some honor to his predecessor, his teacher, and calling it the Shewhart cycle. But Deming actually defined it, which is really interesting. So I don't know why, but Deming doesn't want to take credit for it. He's giving it to his professor, his teacher. That's why it's called the Shewhart cycle, but it's Deming who's made it what it is today. It's used more and more. I've seen that Deming is becoming a bit more recognized at last. He died in 1993, and he basically is the guy that resurrected Japan from the World War II carnage after the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, nuclear bombings, which kind of decimated the whole economy and the whole country. And they've turned themselves around into a powerhouse kind of engineering and business kind of country, which is like, I think Japan hasn't got many natural resources, but they're able to buy the resources and then turn it into machines and items which the rest of the world buys, and they've got a really good quality aspect to them. So you look at Toyota, Subaru, Mazda, Kawasaki, Suzuki. There's a whole lot of engineering firms, so which are excellent quality. So it's from Deming's work. The governor, I think, General MacArthur asked one professor, I think it might have been Shewhart himself, to come and help him rebuild Japan using statistical methods to basically ensure a quality outcome. Don't know why General MacArthur specified this, but that's an interesting subject on an aside, but that's what he asked of Shewhart. And I think Shewhart basically said, look, I can't do it. I'm not doing it. How about this guy who's my student, Deming? Ask him to do it. And Deming agreed. And right now, like to this day, there's a Deming Award for statistical quality work from engineering firms. All those people I mentioned before, the car manufacturers, motorcycle manufacturers, but also other engineering firms. And it's called the Deming Prize. And it's handed to companies in Japan who do outstanding work in statistic and business, automation control. So for manufacturing goods in particular, and adhering to statistical analysis to get a good quality outcome, in a nutshell. So it's basically maths, which is driving the business success. And this is what we can apply to pretty much anything that we want to improve on, whether that's playing a musical instrument or improving a business process or even doing sound recording. And that's why I'm spending a fair bit of time on quality and the sub parts of that, like requirements. So requirements are really fundamental to getting a good quality outcome. If you know what your requirements are, the must-haves and the nice-to-haves, and concentrate on the must-haves and include a couple of nice-to-haves, you will have something that will work. Oh, there he goes. He's off. The noise in the background, that was the dog exiting. Unfortunately, we missed the escape. Anyway. We heard. So, that's why I'm spending a bit of time on this, to help you and help me and kind of encourage myself to keep going the way I'm going. I'm going to blow my own horn here. I've been doing sound properly for just on a year now. I started in November 2023, and now I'm being recommended from people like Joe Joseph, who is a filmmaker. I'm doing ADR work. I just finished, like I said before, today. He's recommending me to other people. So, like from someone I've dabbled in sound and electronics for quite a while, but haven't really been exposed to the film world up until November last year, and because of these principles that I'm applying, I'm trying to improve as quickly as I can, and this is how I do it. And I think that there's a lot of what's the word? There's a lot of benefit from putting in the effort at this level, and this is the basic level we're talking about. It's formalizing practice, and we'll get to the fundamentals of that very shortly. So there's not much to this. It's really there he goes. I don't know what he's backing at. All right, we'll just continue. It's quite simple, as I explained, but it does take extra effort, which is why people don't want to do it, because it takes a lot of effort. And this is why people who put in the extra effort will succeed or excel over others who do not do these things. And these things are basically physically listing out what are the requirements, what's a must-have, what's a nice-to-have, how can I measure it, and then reiterating over and over again. I'm going to have to pause. I've got to stop the dog. Be back shortly. Okay, we're back again. And I just realized that I was talking without actually showing any video at all. So fix that up now. So people who are going to succeed will do these things and put in the extra effort, basically. They're boring and it's tedious, and that's why people don't want to do it. But the ones who do it reap the rewards. So that's my encouragement, is to try and do it. But I'm going to understand if you can't, don't want to, etc., because it is really, really boring and not many people put the effort in. And that's why the ones who succeed are in the minority, basically. Think outside the box, RE things to measure. So when you're listing out the things that you would like to consider as a requirement, must have, nice to have, try and get to it as a brainstorming session or a mind mapping session where you include and don't disregard any wild thought. Just collect all of your thoughts and then clear that up later. So just try and remember what things will help make something a better thing, whatever it is, a process or an item or an object or a group of things that need to work together to give an outcome. You're looking to try and make something better and better. That's the idea behind this. So you try and collect as many requirements as possible. The more effort you put in this early stage, the better the outcome is going to be. So prioritizing the requirements is important and pretty integral to the whole process. That's why I want to spend a little bit of time explaining the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. So the must-haves, obviously, are the things that it's got to have. So for the tire example, it's got to have the capability of having air pumped into it. So it's got to have a standard tire valve, one that you can then go to any garage or any place and pump up the tire. Nice to have might be on the tip of the valve. I want to have a logo, my logo. So that's not absolutely 100% necessary, but it's something which would be nice to have that sets it apart and would enhance the required quality of that item, the tire. So I know it's a crazy example, but that's what I mean by must have and nice to have. Then what I'd recommend doing is listing out those, categorizing those in the must-haves, nice-to-haves. And I'm thinking like you might get between 20 and 30 requirements. That'd be kind of typical. And then you cut that back by categorizing each requirement as a must-have or a nice-to-have. You probably get down to between 5 and 10. And then of those, you work out what the measurement is going to be and how often that measurement is going to be taken, and then what the tolerance is for that. So plus minus for the tire pressure example, plus minus 3 psi, for example, or the equivalent in kilopascals, which I don't know what that is. So while you're doing that, be open to change. So the requirements might change over time. So be open to removing some requirements that you considered were must-haves, and for whatever reason you realise, they don't need to be must-haves; they're nice to have now. And you might discover a new thing which you didn't think of that you include now as a must-have. So don't be afraid to change the requirements. It's kind of like a live document. So it just means that you can keep it edited, keep updating it. It's not set in stone. We just modify it as we need to. and then tick off those requirements as being met. By met, I mean it's measured, and you've recorded the results. And it could be that, to further define that as being met, that it's within the tolerances. Sorry, it's within the tolerances or outside of the tolerances. And that's going to be an indicator of whether then it's a good quality outcome or a poor quality outcome, depending on where it sits in the measured tolerances. So there's other aspects around this event, the do's and don'ts for requirements. So don't be loose with the measurements. Be as precise and accurate as you can be to make sure that what you're measuring is actually real and reflecting what's going on. What's this one? Don't be afraid to find that currently nothing meets the requirement. Oh yeah, just in case there's something that you consider a must-have and there's nothing available on the market, for example, then you could look at making your own or modifying something that is existing to fit your requirement, or you just have to wait until something comes on the market or that you build and set it up to be the thing that you need it to be to meet your requirements. And lastly, this is the kind of the the tertiary, the third thing to focus on in regards to quality is how do we improve that quality. So Deming and Shewhart were constantly concerned about continuous improvement, and there's been a massive market created around this in the IT world in particular, but also in engineering. So there was Toyota Quality Management or Total Quality Management that came out of Toyota. There's Lean 6, Sigma 6, ISO 9001, all these quality standards. They all stem from this work that Shewhart and Deming did, but they all fall short because they don't actually adhere to continuous improvement. They adhere to this philosophy of that's good enough, we're done. So Lean Sigma 6, for example, is 3 standard deviations plus minus, hence 6 sigma. So we've got minus 3 deviations and standard deviations and plus 3 standard deviations across the mean. This is really technical. Anyway, that's where it comes from, is saying anything within plus minus 3 sigma is good enough. But that is not what Deming and Shewhart were talking about. They were talking about continuous improvement. So just because you've met some, some kind of measurement doesn't mean that that's the end. In their world, we can continue to improve and make this massive leap potentially to do something really outside of the box and make something truly innovative, like Wi-Fi, for example, came from an accident from CSIRO, who were doing some research, I think, on finding signals to indicate where black holes were lying. And because of that, they were able to make a leap, and instead of trying to find black holes, try to find really good paths for Wi-Fi signals to transmit. And so in that way, we've made this leap from astronomy into the networking world, where that link would never really be made. And it's because of that thinking, continuous improvement, and hey, we can use this over here. So that's why I don't really like that Lean Sigma 6 or what was the other one? There's a whole lot of different things that came out in the 80s and 90s around quality, and they all fell short of that idea about continuous improvement. They were all basically constrained by this idea, okay, that's enough. We don't have to do any more. We've reached that limit that we've set arbitrarily. And I never liked that idea. I think we should be trying to improve all the time, because you come across these roadblocks that then our minds can't stop thinking about, and we work out a way through the roadblock, and it changes the whole world potentially. So Wi-Fi did that. That's why it's such a great example. And the Shewhart cycle is very, very simple. And it's basically this idea about cycling through these 4 steps: planning, doing, studying, and then acting again to then plan, do, study, and then act again, and then replan. So that's why I equate it to practicing, because that's what we do. We basically have an idea of what I want to practice, how I'm going to do it. You do it, then you study the results of doing that, and then you change some of the process steps or what you do, and then you plan to integrate those changes from the previous iteration into the next step where you do. And you keep on doing that. So you just keep on planning, doing, and then studying that, and then acting on the results of the study, and then doing a new plan. And that just leads to continuous improvement, obviously. And that's what practice is. And this is what you do. And this is how, I guess, you do the documentation of that, just to make it a little bit more efficient, and then be able to improve a lot quicker through actually writing down instead of trying to remember. And that's the power of it. And that's why I want to spend time on it, because this is where we basically improve. Like, for example, today, doing ADR work with Joe, the reason we met today was because I made mistakes on the recording where the microphone itself was clipping. The speakers were basically too close to the microphone. The diaphragm couldn't move or couldn't cope with the fluctuation in air pressure, and it clipped. So we had to re-record things. And what I'd done is basically plan to have the actors step away from the microphone. I just did that then. Step away from the microphone and then re-record their sessions. So I'm going to wait for the next few days and see what the results are from that. And if it's still not good enough, we're going to do it again and then work out what do we have to change. So a lot of people, this is why I like working with people like Joe. He's a perfectionist, as I am, and we want to do the best possible job that we can do. And we go that extra mile to make sure that what we're delivering, what we're doing is the absolute best that we can do. And if it's not, we're going to improve so we become even better the next time. And to see that in action and to see the results of that is incredible, because it leads to really, really strange things happening. So today we met in Hurstville Library, and one of the library technicians has actually just released an expression of interest for audio people to come and teach others on how to help out on film sets to record audio. And so Joe recommended me to Will at Hurstville Library, and that has only come about because we arranged to meet today to continuously improve on the recording of the ADR that I messed up last time we met a few weeks ago. So if that hadn't happened, we wouldn't have met today. I wouldn't have met Will, and I would not have heard about this expression of interest to run a workshop on how to do audio. So I'm super excited by this. Like, that's, maybe I'm drawing a long bow. I don't know. The link to that is maybe a little bit spurious, but in my mind, that's the outcome of taking this approach. Things happen out of left field that you just can't predict, can't plan, and they lead to really, really good outcomes. So it's like a massive improvement or a massive opportunity that I couldn't have planned any other way. So, because I'm not looking for expressions of interest for audio people to run workshops. I would never dream of searching on the internet for that, especially at Hurstville Library. So to have someone see Joe, understand what he's doing, Joe recommend me, and then that lead to my submission going in. I mean, it's really, I love stuff like that. And that seems to happen more and more as I do things like this, like when I kind of zero in on something that's really interesting to me that I really love to do, and I put a lot of effort into it. That's the outcome. Stuff happens. I don't know why or how, but it just happens. It's really cool. And that's what I'm hoping might happen with you too if you do this. So my encouragement is for you to put the extra effort in, start documenting, start writing down, start measuring, start working out the things that are important to you that you think I could improve in this area, and try to be humble. Like, luckily, the feedback Joe gave to me was done in a way where I didn't feel threatened, or I didn't feel criticized just for who I am, but more for is kind of done in a spirit of, let me give you some positive, well, no, not even positive, it's negative feedback, but it's feedback that I can use to improve on. And I'm trying to take that into other relationships I have with people who want to give me feedback, but who may not be as skilled or as respectful or gentle maybe even, as Joe showed. So I've got to try and remember to strip away the emotion and just keep the fact of what feedback is being given to me. Pardon me. And then use that to improve for the next time. Yeah. Anyway, there we go. I'm going to leave it there with you. Thanks very much for your attention. Appreciate that. So I hope this is of some value to you. It's something which I've been trying to integrate in pretty much all aspects of my life, to varying degrees of success. But I'm seeing success in this area for sound recording in particular. So I think it's got a lot of application for this field. So if you want any examples of requirements in a spreadsheet form, I'll send you whatever you want to see in terms of requirements. You can just put a comment in the how do you do that? If you go to YouTube and search on the Sound Guy, you can put a comment and I can just fill in the details there. Yeah. There we go. Oh, and if I win this expression of interest for running a workshop on audio, then I'll let you all know as well. It's going to be probably sometime in the new year, 2025, and it'll be in the Hurstville, New South Wales, Sydney area in the Hurstville Library. So, I will hopefully be able to provide some more input in that area. We shall see. Okay, on that note, let's say see you later and catch you on the next one. Take it easy. Bye now.